Hello everybody, my name is Elijah. Welcome to 85 Studios YouTube. I am continuing this is the second episode. If you haven't seen the first episode with Linn, this is the interview with Linn, who lived in a haunted house for 20 years. And Linn is on the line with me here. Linn, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Hello, Elijah.
Nice to see you again. Nice to see that you're okay. Okay, and she is going to where she left off. She was with her husband in the garage, and they were sitting on a couch. They had just moved most of their furniture in, and they were just sitting there kind of relaxing, and you guys had sensed something was staring at you with kind of a malice kind of intent, and then
Correct.
Stepped outside, and you didn't feel it anymore. So I'll hand that back over to you from where you were.
Okay, so in the first night that we were there, my husband and I, we were sitting on the couch in the garage, and like I said, I felt this. It was just a very terrifying feeling. It was a very frightening feeling that somebody was staring at us, and it was staring at us. Our backs were facing the corner of the entryway into the indoor patio, and it felt like somebody was staring at me. You know I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced what it feels like to feel like somebody's staring at you.
Burning holes in your back of your head?
Yeah, and the feeling was it was a really bad feeling. It was a terrifying feeling. I jumped up and immediately turned that direction, and at the same time my husband, whom I was sitting with, jumped up and looked over there too. I mean, I didn't say anything to him, but we both had the feeling when we discussed it, when we were talking about it, that something or someone was staring at us, and it did not feel good. It gave us both a very frightening and creepy feeling. And not only that, but when I started talking to him about it, he had, and I told him about how I felt. It was the same kind of feeling. It was a nauseating, fearful, frightening feeling. When we first looked at the house, at first he was upset, and then all of a sudden he just started becoming very angry. And frighteningly angry. I mean, to the point to where I started walking away from him, and I started walking out into the driveway away from him, because I honestly thought he might hit me. He was to that point. I mean, I didn't know if he was going to or not. It was that type of aggressive. I hadn't experienced that from him, but I just got this feeling like I needed to get away from him now. And I did. And I walked clear out into the middle of the driveway, away from him. And he started following me, and there was this aggressive walk that he was. I mean, you know how when you see somebody, they're going to fight somebody or they're going to hit somebody, they have that kind of aggressive mannerism?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And as soon as he walked out of the garage and walked probably not more than about 10 or 20 feet, his mannerism changed. It was like this whole, I mean, it was like he was becoming my husband again. In fact, it's very hard to explain without actually seeing it. The change that just is like he changed again, and I started talking to him cautiously about how I had felt when we first moved here, and the feeling that I had when we were in the garage, and I started apologizing for not having said anything, and my husband was like, it's okay. It's okay. And it was like he was back to his normal self again. We chalked it up to being overly tired, being overly excited because this was our home. It was like, we're exhausted. The kids are going to be up early. It's getting late. We've been working. We still got a lot of stuff to do yet. Let's go to bed. And we did. That's what we did. We went to bed.
Anything bother you in the night or anything like that?
Honestly, I don't think that, if it did, we would not have known it. We were dead tired. It was the end of summer. It was a hot day. It was, we rented this huge truck, loaded it all up, and then unloaded almost, 90% of it. Plus, we had 4 kids. They were home. So in between unloading and loading trucks, unloading the truck and loading the truck, we're chasing kids around, which they were hyper because they were excited, Really, it was a great, great time, but we were just dead tired. So if anything would have bothered us, we wouldn't have known it. We were just that dead tired. The next day, got up, I started, doing the normal stuff, like, school was getting ready to start, so I started unpacking the kids' stuff, getting things organized for them, and then I went into the kitchen and I started organizing for that. And I actually, by lunchtime, I had a lot of that house, unpacked and put in its place. When you move as often as we did, my husband was military at the time, you learn to pack and unpack really quick. You do. You just learn to pack a certain way so that you can quickly unpack and on and on and on.
A lot of people say that we're military families. I've heard a lot of people say basically the same thing, yeah.
So it really didn't take me that long to unpack. In the meantime, my older kids were out in the backyard and playing. The yard was a big fenced-in yard. We didn't have to worry about the kids running in the streets or anything like that, or getting into any kind of issues with anything. It was all fenced in, so they were enjoying themselves. The baby was right there with me, and other than he had this ball, and it was a great big lightweight ball, plastic ball, but it was really big, and he would toss that thing, and I would toss it back at him, and I was trying to teach him actually to roll the ball, not throw the ball.
Yeah.
finally at noon, I had unpacked pretty much most of the house, except for about 4 boxes that were in the middle of the kitchen. And it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was sitting down. I was taking a break. I was a nursing mom, so now my son, my youngest son, he was not quite 2. He had a lot of allergic reactions to formulas and milks and different things like that, and the doctor had suggested that I just go ahead and nurse him.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have a problem with it. My husband didn't really have a problem with it. It was healthy for the baby. It was fine with me. So yeah, I sat down, and as he got older, he didn't really nurse that often. It's not like when they're little, And so he was getting to that point. He was needing nursed, and I went ahead and nursed him, and of course when he was done, we started playing with the ball, and he threw the ball once in the kitchen, and it rolled. It was weird. I was watching it, and I was going, oh great, I'm trying to break him of this. He's throwing the ball, I watched it when he threw it, and I was thinking, oh great, he's probably going to break something, because I hadn't got everything put away. I just got it unpacked. And it was weird. The ball, when it flew into the kitchen, it's like it hit something. Something I couldn't see. And it rolled back out of the kitchen.
Interesting.
And I remember looking at that going, what? I mean, it hit the floor and it stopped about 3/4 of the way into the kitchen, and then it rolled back out with speed back into the living room, back to my son.
So like something had kicked it back or rolled it back.
Right. Rolled it back. They didn't throw it. They had rolled it back.
Wow.
And my son was laughing and looking at something in the kitchen, and I thought, well, I'm looking in the kitchen, I don't see anything, and I can't figure out how the heck this ball rolled back.
They say that children can see these things a lot more often than us adults can, because what happens is over the years, as we become adults, even if we're sensitives, we are used to being told that, oh, it's just your imagination, it's just, it's something in your head, you should just ignore it, and over time they say that we eventually, the ability to see them and the sensitivity is less. And they also say that because when you're younger, you're closer to, when you're first born, you're closer to the grave, and when you're older, you're closer to the grave. If that makes any sense. I don't know if you've heard that before, but children see them a lot, and pets see them a lot, especially they're innocent.
See, and over the years, I discovered that. But at the time, I really did not know anything really about that kind of stuff. I mean, my husband had told me some stories about some things that had happened to him, when he was younger, living in a house that had been built back in the mid to late 1800s. My mother-in-law at the time had told me some stories about some stuff while living in that same house. And we had lived in a rental that, honestly, some of the stuff that had happened in there, we had rented the house in November, and it was about right after, it was late November, like during Thanksgiving weekend, we moved in there. And before Christmas, we moved out because there was some bad things that happened there.
So you've lived in more than one haunted house.
Yes, yes. And I don't know if you want to hear about that, or...
Well, let's continue with the current house that we were talking about, the ranch-style house.
Okay. Well, so anyway, so here I am. I'm actually trying to figure out, is there, my first thought was, well, maybe there's some kind of curvature in the floor, or some kind of warp area or something in there that maybe that's what caused it to roll back. I'm still pretty tired from all the moving and stuff, and I'm just going, okay, well, that was really odd, but whatever. I'm not at that point in time too terribly upset about it, or really even all that curious about it. I'm thinking there's a logical reason. Maybe the floor is just not quite even, and the ball hit it and it rolled it backwards.
Yeah, trying to kind of reason, debunk kind of thing.
Well, I don't. At that point in time, it really wasn't even a debunk. It was more like I wasn't even thinking paranormal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that time, I really wasn't. I wasn't thinking anything regarding that. I really was thinking that maybe the floor's uneven a little bit in the kitchen, and maybe the ball hit it just right and rolled it back. That's literally what I was thinking. Now that I think about it, the speed at which that ball rolled back, even if it would have hit an even area and rolled back, it would not have rolled back at that speed. I mean, it came back fast.
Okay. Wow.
It wasn't so fast that it hit the baby or anything like that, but it kind of bounced off of his little knees. I mean, the ball was big enough to where it hit him about where his knees area was and kind of bounced.
Yeah.
So it came back with a little bit of force. But I just didn't think about it. I didn't. And he threw the ball a second time, and I kind of got after him a little bit, It was, I'm going to call him son number 3. I have 3 sons and a daughter. My daughter's the oldest. And then I have 3 sons, and this son number 3, the baby, he threw the ball a second time, and this time he actually threw it hard. He threw it pretty much as hard as he could. And I watched it, this time it bounced and flew over one of the boxes. When it hit, it bounced off of the box and flew over one of the boxes. And I was a little bit surprised because my son, the baby, was, I mean, I thought that was a little hard for him to have thrown it that hard, that it would bounce off of a box and bounce hard enough that it actually, instead of bouncing away from the box, it actually bounced against the box and then flew over the box. And I wasn't going to allow him in the kitchen. I had, like I said, I had 3 or 4 boxes that I had not unpacked. They had knives and things like that in it, so I wasn't going to allow him into the kitchen. And you know, I told him, I said, I said, where'd the ball go? Because the ball disappeared between those 4 boxes that were laying there. And he was like, Mommy, where's ball? Where's ball? And I said, I don't know. You know, I'm just playing with him. I said, you threw it. It's gone now.
Oh, no.
And I was just playing with him, you know. I was like, Mommy told you, don't throw the ball. It'll go away. It'll disappear. It'll be gone. And he just kind of looked at me, you know, kind of funny, like, oh no, where's the ball? Where's the ball? You know, devastated. That's his favorite ball. And I was like, okay, Mama, we'll go get the ball, but don't throw it anymore, okay? He's like, okay, promise. And I walked over here to get the ball. I mean, I saw exactly where it hit. The kitchen floor was completely clear. It was everything except 4 boxes, and these boxes were not huge boxes. They were small to medium-sized packing boxes. And the ball was nowhere to be found.
Oh.
It was gone.
Wow.
It was completely gone. Now, the only thing, there was a opening area for the washer and dryer. The washer and dryer, we had put those in the day before. So if it would have bounced even in that area, there was no place for it to go, because it was a perfect spot for a washer and dryer, leaving just a few inches of room on each side of the wall.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was no place for that ball to have gone. Nowhere. I looked, it had double doors that opened up into that laundry area. I looked behind both doors, and every place else, the kitchen was wide open space. And it was gone. I mean, it was gone. I had closed all of those boxes just in case my little one had gotten into the kitchen, because, you know, at 18 months old, they can get around pretty quick on you.
Oh, yeah.
So there was no way that it would have bounced into the boxes or anything like that. It was just flat out gone. When my husband came in, I was still looking for that stupid ball, and my little one, he was starting to cry, you know, because the ball was gone. That was his ball. That was, you know. So my husband, he even looked. I told him what happened, and we're looking around this kitchen going, where's that ball? Now, we're not talking about a small ball. We're talking about one of those great big balls like you can buy at Walmart. They're lightweight.
Big rubber ball?
Well, they're rubber or plastic, but they're lightweight balls. They come in all different kinds of colors.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm familiar with those.
And, you know, it was just gone. So my husband's solution was, well, I don't have a solution for this, so we're just going to go to the store and buy a new one.
Good
and
plan.
We did.
Did you ever find the other one at all? Anywhere?
No, never did.
Wow. Just vanished without a trace.
Just gone.
Huh.
Just absolutely gone. And no, we never did find it. And over the years, we had other things like that disappear. Never found them. They were just gone.
Yeah, that's actually something that a lot of people report when they're in a haunted house. Items missing, they just one day vanish, and then we have other people that report things like car keys. Like they'll set their car keys somewhere specifically every day, and then one day they'll go to get them and they'll be gone. But usually when they report stuff like that, they say that the keys turned up somewhere that they had already looked, or in an obvious spot that they could not have possibly been before. In this case, it just vanished.
See, with me having 4 kids, I kept things pretty organized. Because of the fact that, well, I was the oldest of 7 kids, and my mom and dad were forever looking for keys or looking for the remotes or looking for stuff, and it was generally one of those things where the littlest ones, the little ones, they would carry off the keys or they would carry off stuff. So when I had my own kids, I pretty much all of my guys, especially my guys. My daughter, she wasn't so bad about it.
Your daughter was older, though.
Huh?
Your daughter was older, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and she was the oldest one, and she was very, very smart, right? She was a very, very smart little girl. By the time she was a year old, I had made a book for her, and wrote out words, simple words like mom, dad, that kind of stuff, and she could pick out the words, and she was just a year old. She already knew how to count to 10. She was just really super smart. And but my boys, they were rambunctious, and I had to really organize things with my guys.
Everybody says boys are worse than girls. You ask anybody who has kids, boys are worse than girls. They're always ornery and rambunctious. They run around the house and they break stuff.
Well, and that was part of the reason why I kept things organized, is it kind of helped with that. And I started teaching all of my guys, and of course my daughter, these things are off limits, and these things are off limits, and it worked pretty well. I can name about 3 things in the entire, all of my guys, that actually got broke. About 3 things in the house.
That's pretty good. That's like a record.
Yeah. And all of it, it just worked. I don't know, maybe it doesn't work for other people, but it worked. By the time, I just literally, I don't know, I guess I'm a little bit, I've always been just a little bit on the neat and clean side, and I taught all of my kids to put away their toys as soon as they were done playing with them, or put away their toys before they went to bed. Just little things like that that really helped me, and it was teaching them responsibility at the same time. And it worked. Everything worked. So anyway, so when it comes to misplacing things in that house, excuse me, I did not have a lot of problems at first with that, as far as keys never disappeared, because I found I'd put a hook up above the sink in the kitchen, and that's where the keys went, and they were always there. They were never not there. Remote controls, there was a spot over by the TV for them. They never disappeared. But when it came in particular to my third child's toys and different things like that, a lot of stuff like that disappeared.
The baby?
The baby things.
Oh.
The baby things in particular would just up and disappear. And I can even remember at one point in time, I even questioned my older sons as to whether or not they had put, the baby's toys with their own. And they had not. I mean, they were like, no, I don't want anything to do with his toys. Why would I want anything to do with his toys? And then I was like, well, did you pick him up accidentally? No, Mom. And
things just disappeared.
They just disappeared because some of his toys were a little bit on the expensive side. There was the Tickle Me Elmo doll that I don't know if anybody remembers the Tickle Me Elmo doll.
Oh yeah, you squeeze his chest or whatever, and his tummy, and he starts laughing and like vibrating and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember that thing.
Well, I had bought one of those for my son, and he played with that thing. I mean, he loved that doll. And one day it just up and disappeared. It was gone. And, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself by talking about that. I'm going to go back to after that ball disappeared. We went and we bought another one. Nap time was around 4 o'clock. I laid everybody down. That gave me the opportunity to make lunch, and we used to like to have lunch about between 5:30 and 6. And I laid down with my youngest son, trying to help him go to sleep. He was having trouble sleeping in the house for nap time. There was just too much excitement going on. So I laid down with him, and we had not got his crib built entirely. We had the mattress on the floor, and I just kind of snuggled up. I had him laying on the mattress, and I kind of just snuggled up beside him on the floor, and we were laying there, and that we were in the master bedroom, and for the first time during the day, it was like I said, it was about 4 o'clock. All of a sudden, I felt like somebody was walking into the bedroom. I mean, I could feel the floor vibrating. And it wasn't like vibrating like, you know, when something's outside, you know, or making the floor vibrate, trains, what have you. This honestly felt like somebody was taking steps into the bedroom. And I got this really creepy, fearful feeling again. And I mean, it freaked me out enough that I opened up my eyes and immediately started looking around the bedroom. And there was nothing there. There was nothing there.
The master bedroom?
Yes, it was in the master bedroom. And I looked over. I guess I must have fallen asleep for a little bit, because when I looked over, I mean, I was laying there. I'm pretty sure I was asleep. I mean, I must have fallen asleep for just a little bit when I was laying down there with him. Kind of dozed off a little bit, and I was immediately woke up with that fearful feeling and the sound and feel of somebody walking into the bedroom. And like I said, when I looked back over at the baby was sound asleep.
It couldn't have been one of your other kids?
No, they were outside. In fact, when I got up off the floor, that was one of the first things I did. Was there was a bedroom window that looked in the backyard, and the kids were all in the backyard playing. I thought maybe it might have been my husband, but he was not in the house. He was actually in the garage. And I went out there and I said, did you need something? And he was like, no. Why? And I said, well, nothing. And I just turned around and walked off. And I was like, okay, well, you know, it's 4:30. I'm going to go ahead and finish unpacking stuff in the kitchen and start supper.
Yeah.
So my first couple of days of being at this house, I had some really odd experiences, and then I had some feelings that were frightening. They were just, I mean, there was this, like I said, this fear. It would come and it would go. But when I hit the bedroom, after that feeling hit me in the bedroom, it honestly didn't leave. I was feeling very, very uneasy about being in that house. And I didn't know what to do, about it. Something was causing me to feel like something else was in this house, is what I was thinking in my head. I was like, something's really screwy with this house, you know. The last time I had felt that way was, as I said earlier, I had lived in a house where we had some very bad things happen there. And, we literally moved out within 6 weeks of living there. And it was a same feeling.
Well, if you wanted to, you could probably go into that. That story. I was just wanting to focus more on the house that you originally started talking about. But it's, it pertains to it, so, if you want to, you can.
Oh, okay. Well, my husband and I, when we first got married, he had just gotten, he had transferred over to Army Reserves and from regular Army, and we had moved into this very, very old home. It was a stucco home, and the landlord who owned it, it actually had belonged, the house had belonged in his family for well over 100 years. His family had built it, and they had lived in it for nearly 100 years. It was still in the family. He had decided, however, not to live in the house, and had decided to fix it up entirely and rent it out. And this house was gorgeous. It was absolutely gorgeous. I've always been, like I was with the other one, I've always been a real sucker for the unique things in life, as far as wood craftsmen, different things like that. And this house, the age of it and the way they crafted things back in those days, just, it was phenomenal. The place was enormous. It was a 2-story home. It was actually too big for us. I was expecting my first child at the time, but I mean, the house, the rent wasn't very much, and the landlord just lived down the street from us, and it was kind of on a corner lot, and it was a little on the private side. There was these great big evergreen trees that grew up along the side of the yard. So it gave you some privacy from the road, and it had originally, I think what it was like it wasn't actually a garage. It was more like from back in the old days when they had the coaches and the stalls for horses and stuff.
Yeah,
well,
like a
it had
stable.
Yeah, it wasn't like a barn, but it was just a coach and stables kind of area from back in the old days. And
like
they had renovated it. Yeah, and they had renovated it into an art studio.
Nice.
Yeah. And so, and I am heavy into art. And the landlord had said that I could go ahead and use that area for my artwork. And I was thrilled. I mean, you know, who gets to have an art studio? I mean, the landlord was into art and that sort of stuff, and you know, and I was like, oh, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to get my own little art studio, and then I've got this great big house. It had giant chandeliers in the dining room and a great big giant fireplace, and great big picture windows in the back, the old-fashioned glass kitchen doors, cabinet doors, so you could see inside, you know, and it had these old-fashioned hooks. You had to push them together to open the cabinet in the kitchen, and then once you shut it, they would pop back out and lock the cabinets in the kitchen, and that part's really important because we had lived there for about a week. We moved in. We were all excited. This was just It was just a gorgeous home. It was, again, it was too big for us, but man, it was beautiful. It was just beautiful. And anyway, I decided I wanted to bake a cake. I was going to celebrate, no more living in military places, this is where, this isn't our permanent home, but by golly, it's not a military base,
Yeah.
And anyway, so I didn't have any eggs, and we ran to the store, which was just down a couple of blocks, and grabbed some eggs and came back. Well, originally, I had these Pyrex glass bakeware. It's Pyrex glassware, and they do not break easily. They're very thick.
Those big old heavy things.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was a cake mix bowl, and then I also had the cooking for cakes and pies and all that sort of stuff. I had the whole set of them, and I just absolutely loved them. And I had gotten all that stuff out in order to make the cake. Well, when I didn't have the eggs, I had decided to put everything back. I put everything back, and I locked it all up in these glass cabinets, kitchen cabinets. And I know they were all shut. I know they were all locked in. Now, the reason why I put all that stuff back was originally I didn't think we were going to be going right away, and I didn't want that stuff just sitting around, so I just put it all back up. Well, then my husband decided. He had been upstairs doing some stuff. Actually, what I found out he was doing was he had snuck in, he had bought and snuck in a baby bed, and he was actually up there, building this baby bed, putting it together for me.
Surprise!
Yeah, he was going to surprise me. So he comes back down, and he's like, "Okay, well, what did you need at the store?" And I said, I'll just go with you. I need some eggs and just a couple of things at the grocery store. So we ran to the grocery store. It's 2 blocks down. I get some eggs. I get some milk, some butter, bread, those kind of things. It takes me just a few minutes. We run back.
Mm-hmm.
When we come back, the side door, there was a front door and a side door, and then there was a back door. The side door was open. It's the same door that we left in. It was wide open. Now it's November. There's no way. My husband looked at me and he says, "I know I shouldn't lock this door." And the door is wide open. So he says, "You stay here. I'm going to go check and make sure the house is okay." So he goes in. I'm standing out there going, great, great, great. Somebody's already broke into our house.
Yeah, that's what I would be thinking first thing.
And so I go in there, and the kitchen cabinets, the ones I told you, all of them had those little locks on them. When you shut the cabinet doors, they all locked. Those were all still shut and locked. But all of the Pyrex stuff that I had gotten down to make the cake and bake the cake in, was laying in the kitchen sink and on the cabinets and on the floor, shattered.
Ooh.
I don't mean just broke in half. I mean they were shattered.
Wow. That's... Yikes.
And immediately there was a back door that was in the kitchen. I went and I checked it. It was locked. There was no way to lock it from the outside. It was one of those kind of locks where you had to lock it from the inside. It was locked. The front door was locked. So, and nothing was missing out of the house. Nothing. Nothing had been touched. Nothing
I think
else.
maybe somebody might have done it to be mean or something. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we were confused.
Maybe your landlord?
I was devastated. No. Our landlord was a sweetheart. He was. He was a sweet, sweet man. Him and his wife both. And I mean, there was just, and we didn't have any enemies. We didn't. There was just nothing, no reason. And plus, if somebody would have done that, they would have had to seen what I took out of and put on the cabinets and what I put back. Because those were the only things that were busted.
Oh. Wow. Okay.
I mean, it wasn't like all of the dishes. I mean, my husband and I, we hadn't been married very long, so I had all of this traditional bridal stuff, brand new cooking ware, brand new baking ware, brand new dishes. All of that stuff was still there and in place.
Huh.
The only things were the Pyrex mixing bowl that I had and the Pyrex cake. Not the baking ware for the cake.
Yeah. That's creepy.
Everything else is...
That's really creepy.
I was devastated. I really was.
That's creepy.
I wasn't thinking paranormal at the time, but then later, at the same time, I was looking at the cabinet doors and they were all closed, just like I had left. Like I said, I've always been kind of neat and orderly kind of person.
Yeah.
And one of my pet peeves, and it always has been, is everything has to be closed.
Yeah, I'm like that with doors, closet doors especially, stuff like that.
Well, for me, it's cabinet doors, like in your kitchen and that kind of stuff, in your bathroom. I don't like that stuff to be left just hanging open. And to me, it just, I don't know, it's
disorganized, disorderly.
So, nothing else had been touched. Nothing else. And the cabinet doors were all closed. Well, we were confused. My husband actually even called the landlord actually to check and see if he had actually come over. There were other days when I would find that back door was unlocked. It wasn't open, but it would be like slightly cracked open. It wasn't like all the way open, and nobody had touched that door. Nobody had touched that door. Yeah. So we had the landlord change the locks just in case. I mean, honestly, in our heads, logically, we're thinking, well, maybe the locks haven't been changed, and maybe whoever rented the house before us. Maybe they still have the keys. They still didn't answer why those things that were busted and nothing else was, but sometimes, you know.
Something anyway, yeah. It's just at least something to keep you sane.
So, anyway, cake didn't get made. But this house had a library.
Wow.
And the library was off of the main living room. And my husband had taken a job where he was working shift work. And I remember he was working the 4 to midnight shift. And this was probably maybe 4 or 5 days later. And I was sitting in the living room, and you could see through the doorway from the living room into the library. And I got this horrible, cold chill feeling that I was telling you that I experienced in the other house.
Yeah.
And something told me to, you know, I got that feeling like something was staring at me, like we did in the garage.
Yeah.
And when I looked over, I saw what appeared to be an older lady. She was dressing in early 18th century type clothing, with the bonnet and the high necked dress.
Wow. The full-bodied apparition.
But it was only half of her. It was from the waist up.
Oh.
Not the rest of her.
You know, in Japan, ghosts don't have feet.
They don't have what?
They don't have feet. They don't have shoes, they don't have feet, and the lower portion of them, they don't have legs, usually, when they're seen in Japan.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder why.
I'm not sure exactly, but it's always been a legend that ghosts in Japan, they're always seen from the waist up, and they don't have feet.
Huh. I'll have to read up on some of that. When you experience this kind of stuff, I suppose that a lot of people probably want to know as much as they possibly can about this stuff. But in reality, when I'm actually experiencing and going through this kind of stuff, I really don't want to know much more. Well, what I want to know is how to get rid of it and how to survive it after a while. At first it might be kind of interesting that there's a possibility that there's something going on.
If you're living in a house with it, alongside it, and it's bothering you, I could see where that would be the thing. But if you're going out places that are supposedly haunted in the middle of the night by yourself and that kind of thing, I mean, usually for me, I'm a sensitive, but I can sense when something's there. I can kind of empathically sense what emotional, I guess, charge it's giving off, and that kind of thing. Usually I don't see these apparitions, and I don't usually hear a whole lot of things, but when I come back, and I dread doing this a lot of times, I'll come back to the cabin here, and I will start reviewing my footage and editing, putting cuts in that for time constraints and that kind of thing. I'll be listening to my audio, and I'll be looking through my video, and I will see and I will hear things that the cameras pick up that I didn't see or hear when I was there. I just got this that feeling that you talk about, that horrid feeling a lot of times?
Well, yeah, for me, at that point in time, I freaked. When I saw her, I mean, at first I froze.
I don't blame you. Not one bit.
And, I mean, because, I mean, I'd never seen anything like that in my life. And I was horrified. I literally was. And terror. Just sheer terror. I mean, I've seen stuff like on TV, you know, little ghost stories and apparitions and scary movies and things like that. And, you know, I've seen that kind of stuff. But to actually see it for real.
Yeah.
For real. And the thing is this woman, I mean, to this day, I can describe her to a T. She was a older lady, probably her face was very wrinkled up, like sun damaged. Older people get, you know, the skin's all wrinkly.
Yeah.
It looked on her eyes. She had black eyes. The look on her face was pure hate.
Ooh.
Pure hate. As though if she could have, she would have definitely attacked me and hurt me, kind of thing. Her dress was wealthier, 1800s type woman. I mean, it was Victorian lace. There was a locket that was in the front, kind of like a pin locket.
Okay.
It was laced down to about mid chest level, and then the dress itself was it was dark in color. I'm not going to say that it was black, but it was dark in color. It came up to where the lace ended, and then came down in a Victorian style, nice, one of those really nice fancy dresses that they used to wear back in those days, in the early 1800s. She had a bonnet on that was matching the color of the dress, but it also had the lace around the bonnet. Her hair had obviously been put up. You could tell that it was put up. And her arms, the dress was long sleeve and had lace at the ends. I mean, I could see her that clearly. I could see her that clearly, but only the top half.
That's scary.
And it was about 8 o'clock at night. And I remember grabbing the coat, and it was cold, and I remember grabbing my coat. I had made a friend that lived down a block, and I remember grabbing my coat and just leaving. I just left.
I don't blame you. I would have done the same damn thing. No. And,
well, prior to leaving, I left a quick note telling my husband that I'm going to be at such and such house, and he can pick me up when he gets home.
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
So, what actually happened that made you guys actually want to actually just up and leave that place within 2 weeks of moving in?
Well, things kept getting weirder and weirder. We were hearing noises that weren't explainable. We had the landlord come over, and we were having what we thought was, you know, maybe there was a pipe issue or something like that. So the landlord pulled up a piece of tile. It was like a fake. It was actually like a fake piece of the flooring, and he was looking at these pipes that were coming along in the kitchen area. I was having a lot of problems in the kitchen. Felt like things where someone was touching me when I would be cooking in there. But there was this banging noise that we would hear. And both my husband and I would hear it. And it was coming from the kitchen. Apparently there was an area that was kind of like a little bit of a crawl space.
Mm-hmm.
The way he had designed the kitchen, there was this little handle-like thing that stayed even with the floor so you wouldn't trip over it. But when you pulled that up, you could go up underneath the house.
Oh, okay.
To check out the pipes. And I was pregnant at the time, so I couldn't go down with him. But he went through and he checked the pipes and stuff, and he said, well, I'm not really seeing anything like that. And I was talking to him, and I said, I wish my husband was here so he could have gone down there with you. And he said, everything's fine. He says, he still has that thing up, and he says, over on this side, I have family that's buried there.
Oh. Oh. No.
And I said, what? He said, yeah, that's how I got the history of the house, that it'd been in his family all these generations and they had built it. Well, a portion of the yard, including a portion of apparently, a portion of the yard was a cemetery for the family. It was a family plot. Back in those days, they would bury their families in these plots in the yards. They had private plots. And, yeah, the original landowners, his ancestors, there was 2 or 3 of them that were buried there.
And they just built a house on top of their graves?
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
It was a vault. It was a vault underneath the house.
Wow. That would have been nice to know before you moved in.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been. It was kind of creepy, but at the same time I thought, well, that might explain a few things around here, but I didn't say anything to him. I didn't say anything to him. He said it to me. He said, the last people that rented this place said that the place was haunted. Exactly what he said to me.
Yeah, just a little. That'd be too much. That'd be it for me. I'd be like, no, I think I don't want to live here. How long is this lease? I think I'm signing it out. I'm gone. I'm gone.
Well, it was not a lease. It was a month-to-month thing.
Mm.
And I was like, well, I have noticed there's a few things around here that have been happening that are unexplainable, and I was kind of stuttering because I've never actually talked to anyone about this at the time, about that kind of stuff. My family didn't believe in that stuff. I wasn't raised believing in that stuff. Didn't know anything about it, and actually, I thought that kind of stuff was kind of hocus pocus kind of stuff, So anyway, he says, yeah, but they won't hurt you. When I told him, that we'd had some experiences, he says, yeah, but they won't hurt you. They won't. It's kind of creepy, but they won't hurt you. And he says, they're just ghosts. He said, that's all it is. And when after he left, I just I couldn't help it. I kept looking down there at the kitchen at the crawl space, you know, and
yeah.
going, oh my God, what am I doing here? I was like, I'm going to have to talk to my husband about this.
Wow, that is... no.
So, okay, so by this time we've lived in the house about 5 weeks. And it's getting up on Christmas. And we pulled down the Christmas tree stuff. We were getting ready to set it up. And I was about 5 months pregnant, but I was really, really big pregnant. I mean, I had a beach ball for a stomach literally at 5 months. I was scheduled in to have a sonogram because they were thinking that I might be carrying twins. I was that large as far as my abdomen goes. And so I had trouble moving around and maneuvering things around, and so I had decided to wait till my husband got back home from work. He had pulled everything out, and I thought, well, you know, I'll wait till he comes back and he can kind of help me with, you know, getting stuff out, decorating the tree and that kind of stuff, decorating the house. Anyway, again, he was back on that 4 to midnight shift, and I'm sitting there in the living room, and I got this really freaky, scary feeling that had overcome me when I saw that creature or that thing in the in the library. And all of a sudden, I started hearing this really, really loud banging. This house had a secondary crawl space that actually led down into the basement, actual basement part where the water heater was and the furnace and all of this sort of stuff. And it was a really big, heavy oak door that lifted from the floor out. And it was a very, very heavy door. I could not lift it by myself. The first bang that I heard, I turned on the lights in the living room. This crawl space was, you went from the living room into it was kind of like a entryway before you hit the side door, the same side door that had been unlocked when we were positive that we had locked it when my bakeware and stuff got broke. I literally, when I turned on the light, I looked toward that entryway because that's where I heard the noise. I was a little bit scared. I thought maybe somebody was trying to break into that door. And I literally watched that basement door open and then slam shut.
Wait, open and... just like open and slam shut?
Yep, by itself.
Oh.
Yep. Like I said, it was on the floor. It was one of those doors that was on the floor, and you had to open it up, and then you had to, and it was a big door. It was a great big door, and it took a lot of power to open this thing. It was a heavy, heavy oak door.
A door that was big enough that you couldn't open it yourself.
No, there was no way I could open that. absolutely no way. Now, for my husband, like I said, he's 6'1", 200 and some odd pounds. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But I did. I literally watched this thing open and slam shut by itself, not once but twice. And again, it was closer to 10 o'clock at night. And I was like pulling on my shoes, pulling on my coat, pulling on.
Yeah.
I didn't even bother to pull on my other stuff. I didn't even bother to lock the door. We'd had a really bad snowstorm a day or so before. It was really slick and icy on top of that. And, you know, I'm 5 months pregnant. I'm huge. I'm like, my friend's a couple of blocks away. I'm sitting here weighing the risk of falling and maybe hurting myself or my baby on the ice, or dealing with that thing. And honestly, I decided, well, I'm going to take it very slow and very easy, but I'm walking 2 blocks away, and I'm not coming back.
I don't blame you. Good Lord.
I went over to my friend's house. I explained what was going on. She did not laugh at me. She did not laugh at me. What I didn't know was that the house had a history. I mean, a lot of people know about this house. I found out later on that there was some problems with this house.
Wow.
But it was just a quietly kept little thing, you know, and
small town.
You know, yeah, small town. Hey, nobody gonna really.
I know that feeling.
So,
yep.
I didn't even leave a note this time. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. That's it.
Yeah.
My husband he started calling around when he got home because I wasn't home. Called her first, I think, or second. I answered, and I told him straight up, I said, you can pack up that entire house. You can find us another place to live. But I'm not stepping foot in that house again. Ever.
We're gonna have to we're gonna have to go ahead and make a cut here, and we're gonna have to make a new episode here. We're at 1 hour and 18 according to my recording timer, but we will continue here with Lynn's story about the ranch style house and the other house, and the other paranormal stuff that she has experienced over the years. If you guys would like to, you could share your story with us as well. Go ahead and send us a message. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/85studios1, and we can give you make sure that you leave us a brief summary of your story, and we can also go ahead and give you a contact number where you can contact us to share your story on 85 Studios as well. You can also hit us up, direct message us on 85 Studios on Twitter, at 85 Studios YouTube. So thank you all for watching this episode, and feel free to click on the link to the next episode at the end of this video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.